People have always wanted to be happy, but was it always the most important goal, or has this changed over time? Maybe happiness was just something extra, not the main goal.
You said it, Michelle. Ancient Greeks like Aristotle did not see happiness as just feeling good. It was about eudaimonia, living well through good actions and having a purpose. It's like being the best in what you do and who you are.
True, Guy. But remember, the Enlightenment brought a change. Philosophers like Jeremy Bentham talked about utilitarianism, that happiness and pleasure should be measured and increased and used to guide what is right. So maybe it became the main reason.
But in Eastern philosophies, it's different, right? Happiness is often less important than balance or peace. Think about Buddhism. It is more about freeing oneself from suffering through understanding and mindfulness than seeking happiness.
And that's strong in its own way, Sonia. Maybe today we focus too much on happiness and don't see the good in feeling and understanding more complex emotions.
But can we really ignore today's view? In now's busy world, happiness has many parts: money, success, relationships. It's not just one thing.
Exactly, Ryan. But isn't it strange how we chase it so much? We have more wealth than ever, but happiness does not always grow. Are we choosing right, or did we miss something important?
Interesting points. What if happiness is not the top but just part of a bigger journey? Are we seeing it as the end instead of enjoying the experiences and growth during the way? Let's talk more about this. Is being happy the goal of life, or is it more important to find meaning and purpose? How do we decide between just wanting happiness and wanting a meaningful life?
Michelle, that's where it gets tricky. Happiness and purpose can feel like they don't match. Aristotle thought a meaningful life was key, but aren't meaningful times often not the happy ones?
Yes, Guy. Today, people often think happiness and purpose should go together. Like the saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day. But real fulfillment can mean facing hard times or sacrifices, which is part of a meaningful life, not always a happy one.
I feel the struggle between those ideas, Ryan. Eastern thoughts often teach that meaning comes from accepting and finding peace with life's problems, not just chasing happiness. In Buddhism, going after happiness as a goal can cause more pain, not less. Maybe accepting life as it is can be freeing.
And accepting things can change how we see happiness, Sonia. Maybe it's not about being happy all the time, but about finding value in all experiences and feelings, even pain. It's more about the journey than the end goal.
But can't we want both, Guy? In the roles we play, maybe mixing happiness with meaning makes life richer. It's a mix, not a simple choice. Finding joy in challenges can change us a lot.
But Ryan, isn't trying for both happiness and meaning a current problem? It can cause stress if we think we can have everything. Valuing simplicity and accepting life's flaws might be important too.
These are deep thoughts. What if looking for happiness and meaning stops us from truly living? Could stopping the search give us freedom, or is that something we can't afford to do? So this is an interesting point. Can we measure happiness with science, or is it hard to define with numbers?
That's a tough question, Michelle. Positive psychologists have tried to make scales and tests for happiness, but can we really catch such a personal feeling with numbers?
Exactly, Guy. But there have been some successful tries. Surveys like the Happiness Index or Bhutan's Gross National Happiness show some way forward. They show personal well-being, at least a little.
True, Ryan. But are those still simple views? Happiness can change with culture. What is happiness in one place might not be in another. Plus, can we always trust people to honestly say how happy they are?
And the big question is measuring happiness really helping us, or just turning a rich experience into numbers? Maybe we can't fully understand life with metrics.
But those numbers can help leaders and decision makers. Metrics can give a big view of how happy people are, which is important for creating places where people do well.
But isn't the risk that we only focus on what we can measure and miss the deeper parts of happiness? We might value simple satisfaction over real emotional joy.
It's like mixing science with art, right? Putting feelings in a spreadsheet doesn't show everything. Maybe it helps us start somewhere, but it doesn't fully explain the journey.
Yet, in our fast world, isn't any direction better than none? Counting happiness might not be perfect, but it's a tool, a start to talk more about what happiness means beyond numbers.
I see your point, Ryan, but I think we might lose what happiness really means. Isn't it about more than just checking boxes on a scale?
These are deep thoughts. Maybe the real question is not how we measure happiness, but why we want to. Is it about control or trying to define what's hard to catch?
And maybe that is what makes the journey special. If measuring happiness helps us talk more and make progress, it could be valuable.
Or it might remind us that happiness, like life, is too complex for simple ideas. It's about finding things we didn't expect while we search, isn't it?
And maybe, Guy, those surprises teach us what it means to be happy by enjoying the search for happiness and its mysteries.
Has technology brought us closer and happier, or the opposite? It seems to be both our friend and enemy. How do we fix this?
Technology gives us new options, but takes away some too. We can connect instantly, but it can also lead to loneliness. Maybe we depend on it too much for happiness.
True, but isn't technology what you make of it? We have more ways to learn and expand ourselves than ever before. But also, it can split our focus and make the search for happiness feel overwhelming. Like always being plugged in might sacrifice our real-world joy.
Ryan, isn't it interesting how technology both helps and hurts our happiness? It connects us, but can also make us feel more alone by hiding real connections.
Yes, digital connections don't have the depth of real ones. Social media shows perfect lives, making us chase an unreachable happiness. This might cause more FOMO or anxiety.
But can't technology help our mental health too? Apps for meditation and platforms for talks, aren't these ways to find balance and happiness?
True, those help, Ryan, but do we depend too much on them? Technology might hide true human contact, which is important for real happiness.
Exactly. Maybe this dependence is making happiness harder to find. Can we fix this, or are we becoming more isolated while being connected?
It's a battle for control, Michelle. Technology wants all our attention. Maybe real happiness needs us to decide how tech should fit in our lives.
And maybe this means we need to set limits. Technology should make us better, not replace our humanity.
But is redefining tech that easy? We need harmony between digital connections and real life.
Finding that balance is hard. Maybe it's not about rejecting tech, but choosing how it affects our happiness. What's the right balance?
It's about balance, Michelle. Can changing how we see tech help us find happiness differently?
It's definitely an evolving idea, Guy. Balancing the good and bad of tech while searching for happiness might change how we see it.
In this tech age, maybe understanding true happiness can teach us more. Is the journey about finding and enjoying life beyond screens?
Are we all the same in how we feel happy, or is happiness different in each culture? How does our childhood affect how we see joy?
Good point, Michelle. In the West, happiness is often about personal pleasure or success. In other cultures, it's about being in harmony with others.
True, Guy. In the West, we go after personal goals, but studies show relationships and community help us feel good, like in Eastern cultures.
Don't forget, some cultures see happiness as living in harmony with nature and spirits. They link happiness with respecting the world around them.
Exactly, Sonia. Whether through money or spiritual things, happiness is wide-ranging. Maybe it's about what each culture values for survival.
But Sonia, is happiness really different across countries when love, safety, and community are important everywhere?
That's possible, Ryan, but the way people find it changes. For some, it's peace. For others, it's fun or success. Even if happiness is the same inside, the way there is cultural.
Should we focus on happiness as our culture sees it, or search for a bigger joy beyond culture?
Maybe we should understand and accept these differences instead of looking for one definition of happiness. These differences make life interesting.
Maybe being united in our differences is key. When we learn from each other's cultures, we better understand global happiness.
Understanding this might help us see happiness as changing for people and communities, not just as a cultural goal.
Let's talk about a basic question. Do we need to suffer to understand happiness? How does feeling pain help us know joy better?
Michelle, I think suffering is important. We often see happiness as the opposite of pain. When we go through hard times, we better understand what happiness really is.
But Guy, is that view always needed? Some say suffering doesn't really make life better. Can't we value happiness without facing sadness first?
Ryan, I understand, but many believe suffering gives life more depth. In Buddhism, knowing suffering is key to finding lasting happiness. It's about changing suffering, not avoiding it.
Exactly, Sonia. Suffering is like a contrast to happiness. Like shadows make a mountain's shape clearer. Without it, would happiness seem as bright or important?
Maybe. But can't we find meaning in pleasure too? Many enjoy moments without suffering, like simple joys or team victories. These also make life good.
True, Ryan, but don't those simple moments often feel best after a tough time? Maybe happiness is best understood when it comes after suffering.
Is there a way where happiness and suffering both exist, making life richer? Or should we try to avoid suffering and focus only on happiness?
Life's richness is often in that balance, Michelle. Life isn't about stopping suffering, but knowing it adds to our joy.
But what if always trying to find this balance is stressful? Could thinking too much about suffering take away from our happiness?
It's possible, Ryan, but maybe it's less about balance and more about accepting suffering and joy as natural parts of life. Acceptance might lead to real happiness.
Maybe life isn't about having no suffering, but about how we deal with both good and bad times. Can we find happiness by accepting joys and struggles?
That seems right, Michelle. Going from suffering to happiness is part of human life, strong and detailed. It's not easy, but like a puzzle.
Let's wrap this up. Is happiness your main goal in life, or is there something else that guides you? How do you decide between them in your daily choices?
Good question, Michelle. For me, happiness isn't the final goal. I see it as something that happens when I live with purpose. When I focus on doing good and being my best, happiness follows. It's like finding hidden gems on a meaningful path.
I get that, Guy, but I see happiness as an important guide. It helps me make choices in a world with many options. It's not always the end goal, but a key sign if I'm on the right path. Balancing happiness and meaning makes my journey richer.
I focus on accepting things as they are, Ryan. Chasing happiness feels like chasing shadows to me. Instead, I try to understand and accept all parts of life, both happy and sad. This acceptance often brings peace and deeper happiness.
Isn't that acceptance close to wisdom, Sonia? It's like we learn to value the lows to really enjoy the highs. Maybe happiness is just one of many emotions, each with its own worth.
But today, isn't there pressure to always be happy? How do we escape that without feeling we're losing something important?
Exactly, Ryan. Maybe we need to accept that always being happy is impossible and not needed. By enjoying simple moments and accepting our flaws, we find more real happiness.
Maybe it's about finding our own meanings of happiness and accepting that they change with time and experience. Can this help us live better without a strict list of goals?
That seems right, Michelle. Instead of a list, it's more like a guide, leading us through an unpredictable life with both troubles and joys.
True, and maybe leaving behind society's goals lets us enjoy our journeys more. Finding our own ways could be the real adventure.
Maybe the main point isn't happiness as a goal, but as a partner. Walking with it, not rushing to it, might connect us more deeply with life.